In sports, the scoreboard doesn't tell the full story, but Netflix does. Stories about dads who happen to be world-class quarterbacks and a battle for the heart, soul, and direction of the multi-billion-dollar business of F1. Whether you're a diehard fan or you're brand new, Netflix has the stories for every type of fan. You can watch these incredible sports stories like Quarterback, F1 Drive to Survive, Untold, and many more now on Netflix.
Hello and welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion with me, your host, Stephen Wallace. In last week's episode, we focused on the bloodstock world. This week, it's the turn of national hunt racing with conditional jockey Charlotte Jones, who I interviewed at the end of September. Charlotte is a first-class northern jockey who has just had an incredible couple of days, riding a treble at Hexham on November the 10th and a double at Kelso the following day. 5 rides, 5 winners, all for her Cumbria-based trainer, Jimmy Moffatt. If you are looking to hear from a dedicated and competitive up-and-coming rider who thrives on hard work, settle back for 35 minutes of inspiring listening. Hello, Charlotte. Thanks for joining me on the Paddock and the Pavilion.
Thank you very much.
Well, we also need to thank Tabitha Worsley, who was our guest on episode 94, who provided the introduction.
Yeah, Brill. Tabitha's a lovely teammate of mine.
I think she's sunning herself on holiday at the moment, taking a break, I think. Well, I saw that on Instagram.
Oh, absolutely. She does right. It's a tough enough game, so...
Do you need that sort of breakaway sometimes to recharge your batteries, especially during the summer?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, for me, I'm attached to Jimmy Moffatt's yard, and we tend to have runners all summer at our local track, Cartmel. So summertime is probably quite intense for us, but it's definitely needed whenever you can kind of get a couple of weeks here or there around racing to try and have some sort of break.
But you like to keep busy. I saw the other day you were doing some eventing, dressage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a busy kind of girl. I've got a lot on. Probably take on a little bit too much, but I have recently, sort of in the last 18 months, taken on an ex-racer from work, from Jimmy's yard, Altruism, and I've just we're just getting going. So at the weekend was his sort of first low-level, first competitive event. It was just low-level dressage, just to sort of see, nice place to start, see how we got on in a different competitive environment other than the racetrack.
It must be very different skills for you and the horse.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's totally different, totally different. But fortunately, that's probably the background I've come from more so. As a kid and before I got into racing, that's kind of the area that I was mainly interested in. So I kind of had to adapt my riding to learn how to race ride and all them things. And then, so it is nice to be able to go back and do that kind of stuff. And it's good that I feel like I'm competent enough to do both. So, yeah.
That was a good cue for my next question, really, was when did you first sit on a horse or pony?
God, it'll have been about when I was 6 years old. I actually went to a friend's birthday party as a young child, just at a trekking centre, which was local to me, called Seaview Riding School. And they were brilliant. So after that, I was hooked, and I used to go every week to sort of Pony Club on a Monday, and I'd be there all day, every day of a weekend. And then I finally persuaded my mum to get me my own when I was about 11. So yeah, and then it all went. That was it. I was obsessed after that.
So it wasn't family that sort of rode as well, no.
No, literally, my family, I'm the only one in my family who rides. They wouldn't know one end of a horse from another. And to be honest, yeah, they're probably pretty scared of most animals. So yeah, no, I'm the odd one out, and everything animal is all me. So yeah.
So what led you into racing? I know you went to equestrian college, didn't you?
Yeah, so I mean, as I grew up, I obviously enjoyed it that much. I didn't quite think that A-levels were for me, so I went to Myerscough College, studied an extended diploma there for 2 years. I actually wanted to be a physio, but ironically, I couldn't get on any human physio courses. They said at the time I had to do human physio first, so whatever. I tried to get on degrees of human physio, but because I'd done horses at college, that I wasn't able to. They wouldn't take me on. So I kind of had to have a bit of a change of mind and decide what I wanted to do. So in the end, I kind of decided I didn't really want the break from education, as I didn't feel like I'd ever get back into it. So I stayed on at my school and I got a degree in equine science through UCLan. And it was there, I had a tutor who is now sort of the CEO of the Scottish Racing Academy. She's the founder of that, and she taught me anatomy and physiology, and a lot of that was based on the racehorse as an athlete. And it was sort of from there on that I was kind of hooked. And fortunately, my granddad was actually very much into horse racing, only like, as a punter. He didn't have horses or anything like that. But he'd have a bet every day. So I remember sort of in the summer between my second and third year, I was kind of sat watching Royal Ascot with him, and I was like, right, this is what I want to do. So yeah, that was it really. That was the first stages.
And you're also a qualified instructor, I read.
Yeah, so I'm qualified to teach. So I did all my qualifications alongside my degree. So yeah, I do bits and bobs of that on the side when I'm not racing. So hopefully the more the merrier. I really enjoy helping people. If there's anything I can pass on that what I've learned and seeing people improve and helping people improve. Yeah, I'm really passionate about that.
How did you then start at Jimmy Moffatt's then?
So it was actually my tutor at the time, Eleanor, who's the one I've just previously spoke about. She was the stable yard manager at my local track, Cartmel. And she sort of said, oh, well, if you want some work experience, you can come and work here with us if you want. So I was like, oh, yeah, why not? I'll learn a thing or two. So again, sort of with watching Royal Ascot with my granddad, and then I went to Cartmel Racecourse, did some help on the stable yard working there. And it was only when I sort of got to speaking to people, I was kind of sort of saying, like, this is what I want to do. How do I get into it? Kind of just asking the questions, really. And it happened that Jimmy, obviously, who's my local trainer, had a member of staff who was leaving. So I just kind of approached him and said, can I come and work for you? Do you have any work experience? Do you offer that kind of thing? And then he was kind of like, here you go, I'll give you my number, give me a call and we can talk about it further. So obviously I did. And he invited me into the yard. I think it was the following Saturday morning. And then it kind of went from there, really. And obviously I still had another year left to do of my degree. So I was actually, what I was doing at the time was I was going in, mucking out, riding out, and then I'd be driving to uni in my final year, my dissertation year and things, driving up to Preston, doing all my dissertation, staying there till about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then driving back home and doing the same thing again the next day. So I kind of, luckily, I was sort of part-time there, and then he offered me a full-time job on my licence when I finished my degree, so that was good.
Well, that's dedication for you, doing that.
Well, to be honest, I think saying that, I mean, Altruism, who's obviously now my horse, he was in training at the time, and I rode him, looked after him every single day. I've rode him and looked after him every day for the last 8 years now. So yeah, he helped because he was probably a lot of my motivation, because I really enjoyed riding him, being every bit involved with his journey as a racehorse. So that was a big help, but I knew it was what I wanted to do in the future. And I'm extremely competitive, which I suppose, as you can imagine, being a jockey. So I didn't want to settle for anything other than the best kind of marks for my degree. So if I didn't get a first, I'd have probably been trying to find ways to resit.
Yeah, I bet there's not that many jockeys who've got first class degrees, are there?
Probably not, but I mean, I wouldn't change the way I've done things differently to everybody else, every other single person, but I wouldn't change that. I think it's probably made me who I am, and it's an achievement that I'm really proud of, and especially doing it sort of whilst transitioning into the world of racing, which is obviously chaotic as well. Yeah, it's all exciting.
It's organised chaos, isn't it?
Yeah, probably most of the time, sometimes.
Well, I've got 10 questions here, which I think is going to really tell your story. First one is, who was your first racing hero?
It's really difficult because I probably am a lot different to every other jockeys, and I nearly probably don't have one. Obviously, the things Rachel Blackmore has done over the past couple of years is a massive inspiration. But I'm very much sort of like, obviously not, I hadn't really watched a great deal of racing neither, apart from I'd watched the Grand National every year since I was a kid. But to tell you the truth, I actually wanted to be a show jumper when I was growing up. That was kind of always what I wanted to do. So I suppose it's similar, but a little bit different. So I think through having not really watched that much racing and there not really being any real female role models until recently, I kind of just I wasn't really bothered in that respect of who I can be kind of like and who I can look up to. Obviously, my coach, Brian Harding, he's brilliant, and like my boss Jimmy, he's brilliant. My agent John, he's also brilliant. Then I think it's really important that I've got that support network around me. But yeah, I'm just kind of paddling my own ship, trying to be the best that I can be. So, and I think when you try too hard to be like somebody else or to do things like somebody else, I just think that you're too busy focusing on somebody else kind of thing.
When was your first ride? What can you remember about that?
God, yeah, my first ride was in 2016. It was at Cartmel. It was in the Lady Riders race. It was on a horse called Smart Ruler, and he finished third. Yeah, that was carnage, but it was brilliant. I was chuffed that he finished third, and I was absolutely made up. It felt like I'd kind of just got off a roller coaster, and I was like blown away by this amazing feeling and this adrenaline rush that I'd felt. And to be honest, I couldn't believe he'd actually finished third. I was thinking, I've actually finished third in a real life race. Like, what's going on?
And when was your first win?
So that came a little bit later. So that was my first ride was in the July 2016, and then my first win was in the May of 2017 on a horse called Lock Kent. It was in a conditional jockeys race, also at Cartmel. And he just kind of came from the back and out of nowhere, just sort of stayed on through the field and finished. And I mean, I feel like that day, like something came over me that I've never really experienced before. My hands were up, I was cheering, and I remember Jimmy had said to me, "Don't ever do that again, don't celebrate like that ever again." And I was like, "Oh, right, sorry, I didn't really realise, I didn't know that wasn't the done thing." But I was just so made up that I'd had a winner, like so I kind of was a bit overawed with it, really.
Because you hadn't had many rides when you rode your first winner, had you?
No, not at all. I'd had a handful of, but yeah, probably a small handful of rides. Probably off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure, but I wouldn't have even said I'd have had 10, to be fair.
I think I know what the answer to this question is, but I will ask it. What's your favourite racecourse?
Oh, now, do you know what? I don't know. It depends how I'm doing at that race course. I mean, if you'd have asked me last year, I'd have said Cartmel all day long. However, this year, I've had 2 winners there this summer. I had 12 by the time, like this time last year. So obviously Cartmel is a special place to me. It's local. I've rode a lot of winners around there. I have a lot of local support. I used to do Pony Club camp there when I was a kid. It's the first place I learned to make a cup of tea when I was at Pony Club camp. So yeah, it is a very special place. But the thrill of riding around Aintree, that's amazing. I was lucky enough to ride a winner later in the year of 2017 at Aintree, and yeah, I probably didn't really understand the scheme of it back then to actually appreciate it, but yeah, that was good. I quite like riding around Haydock as well, and again probably Perth, to be fair. So yeah, I'd say they're probably up there with my favourite tracks to ride around.
Because you've been the leading rider at Cartmel, haven't you?
Yeah, I was there. That not this season, obviously, but the past 2 seasons. Yeah, I was leading rider around Cartmel, so that was very special. And like I said, to do it twice meant a little bit more, because I kind of felt like I'd concreted it a little bit rather than it being just a fluke.
What's your favourite other sport?
Well, I mean, obviously rugby is big in my household, so I'd be getting shot if rugby wasn't up there. But to be fair, I think for me, I'm quite big into netball. I mean, maybe not so much anymore, obviously through not playing it and not having the time to play like I did, but I was always a very competitive, enthusiastic netballer so throughout my younger years. So, and to be honest, it's something I am looking at getting back into a little bit because I just think it keeps you fit. I enjoy it. And the competitive element, obviously, it's nice to be part of a team with a good group of girls. So, yeah, I'd probably say netball, really.
I thought you might say rugby because your boyfriend, Sam Bedlow, plays for the Sale Sharks.
Yeah, so he's just signed this season back at Sale Sharks. He was there in the academy when we were a lot younger and then went down to Bristol for 6 seasons. So he was at Bristol Bears. So, yeah, it's nice to have him back up north. I'm chuffed about that.
So do you get to watch him when you can?
I do now, yeah. I mean, there was probably only a handful of times I got down to Bristol because obviously with working, I mean, I went down to Bristol, but I wouldn't always be there in time for the games because obviously games on a Friday night, well, I was obviously riding out Saturday mornings. And then obviously any games that sort of started on a Saturday, with them being sort of down south, it was a good sort of 4 hours from me. So often they would start latest maybe 3 o'clock. But obviously I don't finish riding out till sort of 12:30. So I could get into the games was a struggle. But I'd go to as many as I sort of could. Sometimes if there was a Sunday one or if I was able to get away early at any point, I'd go. But yeah, it wasn't many. But now that he's at Sale, I live half an hour from Sale now. So yeah, it's a lot better.
Who's your best friend in the weighing room? You can say Tabitha if you want.
To be honest, I get on really well with Tabitha, but she's obviously down south, isn't she? So I don't how often I see her. When I do see her, obviously, yeah, she's great. I get on with her really well. But to be honest, it's probably Emma Smith-Chaston, I'd say, as far as the Northern girls go. She's at nearly every meeting I ride at. So, yeah, I get on with her really well.
Here's just a very straightforward question. Would you rather win the Cheltenham Gold Cup or the Grand National?
Both. I mean, to be honest, I think probably for me personally, the Grand National holds a lot more prestige. And I'd say I've probably only really been interested in Cheltenham and the Gold Cup since being involved in racing. However, the Grand National, I've watched every year without fail since I was tiny. So I'd probably say that's more of an important one for me.
But you have been down to ride at Cheltenham, haven't you?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to ride. I rode in 2021, but I kind of feel like I was cheated of the full Cheltenham experience because it was just after racing restarted again after COVID. So there was no crowd. It was a very strange environment, but albeit it was still there. So it was good.
It must have been strange though during COVID when you were racing without any crowds.
Yeah, it was. It was very eerie is probably a good word. It was almost, you almost felt like you were in sort of a video game and things were moving around and there wasn't a lot of action outside of the track. So it was definitely nice when crowds were allowed back in.
Here's a different one for you. We're going to talk about it later anyway, but what's your favourite gin and tonic flavour?
I don't actually like tonic because I've got the palate of a child and I have got a very sweet tooth. So I'm not a tonic person, but gin, I really like a rhubarb gin and apple cider.
Well, you've got your own label, so we're going to talk about that later. But you've mentioned this already, so I've almost anticipated your answer here. But your best win so far, I think we know what that is, and at Aintree, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Having a winner at Aintree is brilliant, no matter what it is. But I think at the time, I mean, I was still a £10 claimer, and it wasn't the worst ride I've probably given a horse, but the way it looked, I was everywhere. I made the running. It was one of my first times making the running. And I was right down the middle of the track. The horse didn't help me one little bit. I had to basically send her the whole way for 3 miles. So I was dead at the end of it. But nevertheless, it's a winner at Aintree. But I think, I've won the Crystal Cup at Cartmel on Alpism. So that was quite special. And I won one of the other big races on Loch Kent and the Cartmel Cup on Alkmaar. So yeah, probably aside from the Aintree, I mean, I've had a couple of winners at Haydock. It's always nice to have a winner at Haydock as well, really. But Yeah, as far as big wins go, I'm still waiting on one. So hopefully this is the season.
But they're returning to the win at Aintree, 33-1, 15 runners. That was your first ride at Aintree, is that right?
Yeah, that was my first ride at Aintree, and obviously I was lucky enough to win. But yeah, the horse one, she didn't make it easy for me one little bit. I think I might as well have carried her the whole way around.
Here's a question that I ask quite often on the show is, if you could ride any horse in history, and it could even be a show jumper in your case, who would it be and why?
I mean, racing wise, I'd love, girl power and all that kind of thing. But I would really, really, really love to have been able to have a spin on Highland Lodge, who was in our yard over the national fences. I mean, I'm yet to see a horse who jumped them fences better than him. So I would really, really have loved to have a go on him doing that.
And didn't he win the Beecher Chase? Is that right?
Yeah, he won the Beach Chase in 2015, and then he was beating a short head in 2016. So yeah, he loved the place. He loved Aintree. He came alive as soon as he walked down the ramp of the wagon. So I think if I could, and I know obviously he's not one of the top sort of famous horses that sort of that's ever been, but like I say, I don't think I've really seen many that jump them fences as well as he does.
Have you had a chance to have a spin over the Grand National fences yet?
No, not yet. I mean, we had a runner in the Beecher back in December, Rapid Flight, who I won 5 on last season. But I wasn't actually qualified at the time to ride over the national fences because I hadn't had 10 winners over fences. I'd only had 9, but obviously that's changed now. So I just, whenever the opportunity comes, obviously I'll grasp it with both hands. But yeah, that's probably one on the bucket list.
Well, thanks for answering those. Before we go on to talk about women in racing, what's it like to ride for Jimmy Moffatt?
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, Jimmy has been really good to me. He's probably been like a sort of a father figure really in the yard, and he's really good in that respect because he's helped me a lot along the way. Obviously, I was new to racing when I came into the sport, and obviously not really knowing what goes on, how things work. He was really helpful. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's told me off a few times when I've got things wrong here and there, but yeah, he's learned to sort of trust me along the way with the horses, and now we sort of are able to have discussions about the way that they're ridden, the way they are, the races they go for, things like that. So that's always good. And I mean, he's good because it's all very much a team effort. Do you know what I mean? There's got obviously the staff and things that were there as a team. So it's good in that respect.
And you mentioned Brian Harding. You get to chat through rides with him. Yeah,
so Brian is my jockey coach. He's been my jockey coach since I've been a £7 claimer, and I try and get him up to use the Equisizer, and just for general coaching. Try and get there maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks if I can. Depends what I've got on and what we're doing each week. But then if not, sometimes he'll come into Jimmy's and we'll be schooling horses. So he's always a big help in that respect. He's at the races when I ride, so I tend to walk the track with him as well, so I can discuss my upcoming rides of the day. And then I'll catch up with him at some point, either on the phone or next time I see him later on about what he thought of that ride. So that's really helpful because I find him a very straight person. So he'll tell me if I've done a rubbish job, and he'll also tell me if I've done a good job. So I value and trust his opinion a lot.
Let's move on to women in racing. What are your thoughts about the number of female national hunt jockeys?
We're very slim, aren't we? Very slim on the ground. I just think it's an amazing sport to be a part of, and I hope that I can inspire a younger generation and some more ladies to get involved in the sport that we're in. So yeah, I definitely think we need more.
Is it a lack of opportunity? Because we've had Rachel Blackmore's won the Champion Hurdle, the Gold Cup, the Grand National. Bryony Frost has won the King George. She's won the Ryanair. Lizzie Kelly has won Grade Ones. Why aren't there more of them?
I mean, I think it's obviously perspectives are changing. It's not, I don't think we're quite there yet. I don't think it's quite an equal sport yet. Things are moving forward, things are progressing. Obviously, people are aware, and I think the fact of the likes of Holly Doyle on the flat, Rachel Blackmore, Bryony Frost, them sorts of people in the limelight and doing the things that they've done is only positive for women in racing. And to tell you the truth, I actually think it's finding women who've got the characteristics. I think racing is quite a publicly closed. It's not really very transparent. So I hope, and through probably no fault of its own, it's not transparent on purpose. I think it's just we're that in our own bubble and busy. People sort of don't really reach out and be like, and this is what we do. And I think because to us it's the things that we do every day, it's just mundane. It's just what we do. We don't think anything of it. Whereas to people who are not in racing, they're really interested by what we do kind of on the daily. So I think that it's probably a little bit of people like young girls and things. It's not an area where you would know how to get into it unless you knew somebody already in it. So I think that's probably one big area that is probably what stops people. And I think also it's finding a female. I mean, I'm not sexist in any way, shape or form. And in fact, I'm very much all for women in sport, women in racing, women doing this and that and whatever. I'm very much about that. But I think it's probably finding women who are resilient enough, who are probably tough enough to take things on the chin and have a bit of that male characteristic about them to be competitive and to be that kind of that fire in the belly almost sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's almost tough to find women that have that.
Because it is a tough sport, isn't it? It's not all glamour, is it? You're working very hard, long hours, aren't you? And there's danger. I know you're going to say there's no danger because you don't think of it, but there is danger in what you do.
Well, yeah, at the end of the day, you're travelling over 30, 40 mile an hour on a horse that's got its own mind, and then somebody goes and sticks 5-foot fences in the way. So, it's not, it is dangerous, but at the end of the day, if you think like that, then there's no point doing it, is there? So you've got to enjoy it and you've got to be dedicated because it is hard work, but it's worth it when you win.
And do you consider more role models like yourself, and you've mentioned Holly Doyle, Rachel Blackmore, will inspire more young girls to take up race riding?
I hope so. I mean, it's all that you can't sort of do any more. I mean, from my perspective, I try and promote racing as much as I can on my social media, and also try and promote a normal sort of lifestyle. I'm a normal person. I'm not born into racing. I'm a normal person. I've got normal sort of family, not like a racing. I mean, I don't mean normal as if people in racing aren't normal, but I'm not from a racing background. I don't have anyone in my family. My friends, obviously, apart from the friends who I've got in the yard and in racing. So yeah, it is a different world, but I do try and promote that you can kind of do a little bit of both, and I think it's important for both, and to escape from the world of racing for your mental well-being and physical, really. Like at the end of the day, it sounds a little bit selfish, sort of just focusing on yourself, but if you don't, then you're only responsible for your own happiness, aren't you?
Because when you were younger, you said earlier, there wasn't really as many role models, and certainly like yourself, who've come from outside the bubble to actually sort of watch and inspire others to race ride. Well,
there wasn't. I mean, I couldn't before Rachel Blackmore, Holly Doyle, and I mean, this might be me being a bit ignorant, but I didn't watch racing, and I certainly didn't know of a female jockey. So I've never kind of developed with a female jockey role model in mind. And I think I'm not a male, so I can't look at someone who's a male and say, oh, I want to do that. Like, yeah, all right, I can compete on the same level as them. Of course I can. But at the same time, I'm not anybody else. I'm me. So I don't want to ride like anybody else. I want to ride like me. I want to do things the way I want to do things, and I want to break through, and I want to do things the way I do. So I'm not really one for sort of being like, well, I want to do it like them. I mean, I could take little bits of sort of saying, oh, well, so-and-so rides like this, I quite like that, so-and-so does that, and be like, how do I do that? I can take bits of here and there, but ultimately I can only adapt it to my own style of doing things.
Well, thanks for answering those questions. One more serious question, really. How do you deal with, which you must get as a female jockey, as a jockey, online abuse on social media?
To be honest, I'm probably a little bit numb-minded to it all. I just think unless you've done what I've done, then I don't think, in my opinion, I don't value what you have to say, kind of thing. So the people who I value the opinion of are my coach, my agent, obviously Jimmy, and say senior jockeys. But other than that, if you've not ridden a horse on the track, if you haven't sort of been and done what I'm doing, then you could tell me I'm rubbish, you could tell me I'm good, but I just kind of think, well, you don't know. So if you're not there and you're not doing it, then it's totally different to how it looks on the telly.
Yeah, well said, Charlotte. It must be tough though when you're getting.
I mean, yeah, but again, I like to say I just kind of ignore it because you could easily get yourself beat up about it and get yourself into a sort of stew. But like I say, ultimately, if you haven't done it, you might be able to ride a horse normally, but again, that's totally different to race riding. And you might know a lot about racing, and you might sit and watch a lot of racing, but you've never ridden a horse. So, and then tying the two things together, like I say, I just think unless anyone's done it, then say what you want because it's irrelevant. Do you know what I mean? I don't dwell on unless it's come from somebody who's actually been in the position I've been in.
The Paddock and the Pavilion is probably the only podcast which covers cricket and horse racing, and we have a large archive of inspiring stories. Back in episode 94, I chatted to Tabitha Worsley, who recalled riding in the 2021 Grand National. Here's a short clip.
I was lucky enough he'd been around before and he was very good, so I just got to sit and enjoy him, and they went very, very fast, which you'd expect in a 40-runner handicap, but he just kept plugging away and he just stays all day. He just probably doesn't have the gears that he would have had 2 years ago. And
he got round, he came 14th of the 15 finishers. How did that feel when you finished the Grand National?
Oh, it's unbelievable to say. We always went there sort of hoping, first things first, safe round, get round complete, everyone back in one piece, and if we could then finish top half, we'd be over the moon, and he's done exactly that, so couldn't be happier.
Well, changing the subject completely, you've also got your own gin label with Sam. How did that all come about?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, so he played down at Bristol Bears, and there's actually a distillery down there called True Valley. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of it, but and Sam and a couple of the other Bristol Bears players got friendly with Joe, he's called, who owns True Valley. And anyway, we all kind of got talking. We were kind of like, oh, should we make our own gin? So we did all tasters and decided obviously on our labelling, logos, bottles, everything that you can decide we came up with. So we released our original flavour, which was quite a citrus-based flavour. We also did an elderflower flavour. And then we also collaborated with Clifton Coffee and did like a coffee sort of flavoured gin. So that kind of was a bit more like a liqueur type sort of drink. But we're actually just in the process of selling that at the moment because obviously now Sam's sort of come up north and it's just sort of, there's not really a lot of point in us being involved and doing that. So so that's kind of all just in the middle of going through a sale at the moment. So yeah, we're on to a drinks truck for now. Just for different events like weddings. We took it to Cartmel races throughout the summer, so it was at every meeting over Cartmel races. So just a general sort of drinks trailer truck kind of thing.
So what does the future hold for Charlotte Jones? Lots more winners, lots more rides?
I hope so, yeah. I mean, I feel like the best is yet to come. I'm nowhere near where I want to be just yet. So I feel like I'm still on the up. I think I'm about 12 or 13 winners off riding out my claim. So I just, and I hope I can get a couple of big race wins. And like I say, I'd like to have a ride over the national fences at some point. And like, if I can be successful and be an inspiration to younger people, if I can interest another female jockey at all to join the sport, then I'm satisfied with that.
Well, 57 winners I looked up at the moment, and you are getting more rides.
I think I've had 62 actually now.
Oh, right.
So.
I'm mistaken there. Sorry.
Yeah, I think I've had 62. So, yeah. And again, the season's just getting going. So hopefully over the next month or so, there'll be more meetings. And yeah, that's the one. More rides, more winners.
So will there be plans at some point to come south, hopefully to Cheltenham?
If we've got anything, I mean, to be honest, hopefully we have got a nice team of horses for the winter. We've got quite a few younger horses coming through the yard now as well. So I'd say over the next, if not this season, certainly next season, there'll be a lot more exciting. We've got a good army to go to war with, really. So yeah, I'd hope so. I'd like to think some of them might be capable of taking us there.
Thank you very much, Charlotte, for joining me on the Paddock and the Pavilion, and the very best of luck for the season.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Taking charge of your future starts with taking the first steps. And saving up to $30 a month on Cox Internet with the Affordable Connectivity Program makes those steps easy to take. Whether they bring you to click upload on your first short film or join now for an online book club. Applying is easy. See if you qualify at cox.com/ACP. Non-transferable one per household application and eligibility decisions are made by the FCC.